Mad God is a film by Phil Tippett that apparently has been 3 decades in the making. I got around to finally checking this thing out on Shudder this afternoon. I wanted to offer my thoughts on it. It's probably not going to do a whole lot in terms of the YouTube algorithm because it's been out for a while. I think it actually came out this past summer. But I'd heard a little bit about it. I wanted to check it out and sort of offer my thoughts on that. And I'll just say up front, it's an experimental movie and it's certainly not for everybody. I think, once you get 5 to 10 minutes into this thing, depending on sort of your approach to filmmaking and what you think is acceptable or not acceptable to try and reel in an audience, to make an interesting story, all of that sort of stuff, you're going to have a pretty well-formed opinion about what Tippett was going for here, or maybe not going for, but what he has actually achieved and what your response to that is. And I wanted to share a little bit about my response to that and sort of my takeaways, if I can really call these takeaways. If you look at this movie on places like Rotten Tomatoes or maybe even IMDb, even though I think the opinion on IMDb is a little less favorable, it's really gotten a lot of critical acclaim for being something that pushes the boundaries of movie making in terms of bringing to light the idea of using stop motion animation to try and, in an abstract way, tell a story or put some ideas out there or try and broaden people's thinking about any number of topics. But I think that's my issue with this movie. I will say that I don't really like this. I like experimental movies. I like when things try to expand horizons and push boundaries in ways that have not been done before. But this is so dense. It's not even that it's grotesque. I mean, it is a very grotesque and kind of horrifying movie in a lot of ways. That didn't so much bother me. It's just that it felt like a chore. Like, getting through this movie was not an enjoyable experience. And maybe that's, part of what Tippett was going for. And I don't necessarily think that it taught me anything. And that could just be me being a little bit dense and not reading enough into this. And I think it's one of these movies that you kind of have to experience to really understand. I could go into this review with splicing some footage of the movie itself sort of over top of what you're seeing here. I think because this is more of an experience holistically than it is sort of a movie watching endeavor, if you want to sort of phrase it that way, then I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to suggest that if you're interested in it, go do maybe a free trial for Shudder if you don't already have access to that. Check it out, cancel your trial, whatever it may be. But because this was getting such, kind of rave reviews and being discussed in film circles to some degree, I wanted to check it out. And again, I just didn't like it very much at all. There's some commentary here, I think, about working class society and maybe humanity in general and what our existences are all about, and how there's sort of this futile drudgery to what it is to be human. I think there's some commentary here too, in sort of a fantastical way, about the Big Bang Theory and how the universe was created. And I think this is meant to be a movie that's supposed to be dissected over multiple viewings. And I think that Tippett probably had in mind that this is one of these things that would sort of emerge as kind of a cult classic, right? It would be a piece of abstract art that would be examined over the course of many, many years and sort of looked at. But I have no desire to revisit this movie at all. In fact, I had a hard time staying awake during this movie, and I think it speaks to just different people's personalities and how they might respond to something, but I need at least a little bit of a plot. Here, there really is no plot. I mean, there's no discernible storyline other than you've got this masked figure who's wandering through the underbelly of this destroyed world. And part of the commentary here, I think, has to do with nuclear war, the dangers of nuclear war. I think other movies have done that commentary a little bit better and a little bit more of an entertaining fashion, where the viewer is able to walk away with some kind of understanding that they didn't have before, or to think a little bit more deeply about it. Right off the bat, I'm thinking of the Terminator franchise, especially Terminators 1 and 2. They talk about the dangers of sort of unchecked aggression, AI, nuclear fallout, what that could mean for humanity. There are other movies out there that tackle similar topics, I think, much more effectively than what you get here. And I think because it is so bizarre, it is so abstract, that a lot of people are not going to respond well to this. Again, I like what Tippett is trying to accomplish, and I applaud him for having a vision and seeing it through, especially, again, because it apparently took 3 decades to get this thing off the ground and to make it a reality. But is it a good movie? Is it a good film? No, not to me. I think it's an interesting think piece. It's sort of like looking at an abstract painting in a museum and trying to interpret it in different ways. And I think that's what this movie is. I think people are going to see it and have a lot of different interpretations of what it means. But for the average moviegoer, I don't think it's something that's, all that worthwhile. I don't think that there's something here. I don't think there's anything here that people are going to draw out of this that has any meaning for them. I tried to think hard as I was sort of sitting through this, watching this, trying to understand what the imagery suggested. And actually, there was a Bible verse at the very beginning of this movie that I think was meant to give us some kind of semblance of an understanding of what it is that Tippett was trying to communicate here. And it's coming from Leviticus, and it says this: I will lay your cities in ruin and make your sanctuaries desolate, and I will not savor your pleasing odor. So maybe this is some kind of pseudo-religious commentary on, what humans have done to planet Earth. I mean, you could take away here something to do with pollution, treating the environment well, and all of that, and sort of the wrath of God and what that looks like. And this is a very kind of multi-layered experience when you watch this movie. Again, though, it's something that you have to really, I think, sit through to see what your interpretation of it is. And because I think every movie is worth at least one sit through, especially when it's generating a lot of discussion about being something that's new, that's different, that's worth checking out if you like the art of filmmaking. And I will say, from an artistic and artistry point of view, the stop motion here is very, very cool. I don't think this movie would have the same sort of tactile feel, the same sort of grotesque grandeur that it does if it was not stop motion. I appreciate that about it, but everything else about it, I think, is just super abstract, super hard to work through. Maybe on repeat viewings, people can take away more of it, but to me, if it just had even the semblance of a plot, the semblance of a storyline, of a narrative in some capacity, it would have been that much more effective. Anyway, that's my take on Mad God. I keep wanting to call it Mad World, which is a Wii video game. I don't know why that keeps cropping back up into my head. But anyway, that's my take on it. If you've seen this film, if you've seen this movie, let me know what you think about it. I very much could be in the minority here, but I just think that, for all the things that it does in an experimental fashion, it's missing the one key element, that of some kind of discernible narrative, discernible plot to make it, enjoyable, to make it acceptable. And I'm using the word enjoyable. That's probably the wrong word. To make it, discernible, understandable would be the takeaway there. But anyway, if you've seen this, let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you had a happy new year, and we're going to dig into a lot of reviews, a lot of commentary as we get deeper into 2023.